before we get on to the current Italy, we were just talking to Craig Brown there, and we were chatting about team spirit during a major tournament, and he was saying he always looked at Italian national teams when he was the Scotland manager for team spirit, that he felt that always the guys on the bench were the first off to celebrate when a goal was scored, that if there was a bit of a scrap starting, they'd be trying to get involved in that as well. Is that something that's always been there in Italian national football? And I guess then leading on to Roberto Mancini and his difficulties as a player, does it maybe explain why his international career didn't go as well as he would have liked?
I don't know if it's always been there. I think the same as any national team, there are groups that come together very strongly and some that don't. I think if you want to look back in the sort of recent history of Italian football at teams that haven't done so well, for instance, the team in 2014 that went to the World Cup and didn't get through the group stage, there was a lot of talk that year about frictions between certain players, perhaps some older members of the group who were unhappy because Mario Balotelli was bringing his girlfriend in and was doing all sorts of high-profile stuff with her when they felt like he should have been concentrating on being with the groups. There have been times when it hasn't been like that, but definitely I would say it's a theme of the current group. And I think perhaps it's one of those sort of understated elements that lots of people have talked about, the fact that, England get to play some games at Wembley, Italy get to play some games at the Stadio Olimpico in Rome, and what advantage do they get from playing at home? And I think not enough people have talked about maybe the fact of just staying in familiar bases. Italy have their setup at Coverciano, which is also where the national managers school is. And there's definitely a sense in this group that the players are having fun together in that space. There was a detail that I only actually heard about a couple of days ago, which is that at Coverciano, there are individual rooms. So every player, if they want to, can just have their own space and can choose to. But some players have chosen not to. Some players have said, no, we want to room together with so-and-so because these are friendships that we have. And normally when we go touring, we get to room together. And they want that feeling of bonding and closeness. And I think that's one of the things that's definitely come out with this Italy group is that sense of closeness.
For someone like yourself who watches Italy all the time, I'm sure what's happened maybe hasn't been a massive shock, but a lot of people are still thinking of 2018, a World Cup and Italy not being there and just simply not being the force that they once were. When Roberto Mancini got the job, what was the reaction in Italy? Because I guess you look at his career as a player and he did so much and achieved so much and was such a talent. But then, as I mentioned, his international career, the rows of Arrigo Sacchi, the competitiveness for the forward spots at that time, it never quite happened. Was there a welcome for Roberto Mancini?
Yeah, I would say that Mancini was a reasonably popular choice. But honestly, in 2018, I think there was an overwhelming sense of apathy about the national team. I think people were so disenchanted with what had happened under Ventura, the fact of missing out on the World Cup, the fact that Mancini came into this job for a country that didn't even have that summer that everyone else had just had, that opportunity to go and do that. It was a really odd moment. It was a very understated moment. So I think Mancini, and perhaps this was to his advantage, when he took that job, it was almost, of course, in reality, people were still watching the games, but it felt like a country was barely even paying attention to what was happening with the national team.
The stats don't lie about what he has done then. Like 80 goals in what is now a 29-match unbeaten run, 10 victories in a row without conceding a goal. It is a quite remarkable transformation that they have gone through, and with a brilliantly exciting attacking style of football and energy and enthusiasm and say a real likability as well. They're just a lovely team to watch, and the quality of Locatelli's first goal. Did it click quite quickly when Mancini came in as to what he wanted to do?
I think it's been a process. It's been gradual. I mean, yes, if you want to look at the numbers, then you can say it happened quite quickly, because the last time that Italy lost was in November of 2018, which was his first year in the job. So yes, it happened pretty fast. But I wouldn't say that the first game after that last defeat against Portugal was already playing this football they're playing now. It's definitely been a coming together of, first of all, group of players, and there's a lot of players in this squad who played together in youth football all the way back to under 21s, under 18s, even under 15s. So some of that is them maturing together and coming together into this team, but some of it is definitely, it's taken time to find the harmony and the fluidity that they've got today. I think there was progress incredibly quickly, and that perhaps is unsurprising because Italy was so bad in that qualifying campaign for the World Cup, and so bad even in the playoff against Sweden, that some step forward happened almost immediately. But I think there wasn't one moment when it suddenly clicked and Italy were playing this football they are playing now. I think that's been a process that is just sort of ramped up and up and up as Mancini's got more comfortable and his players have got more comfortable with him.
Manuel Locatelli with the brace last night, well, they may have come in without any standout stars, may well find himself en route to becoming one. I remember seeing him over here in Dublin a couple of years ago. He was with the Italian under-21s that played Stephen Kenny's Irish under-21s at the time, and a lot of that Italian team, those young players were at big club but were out on loan, and if you try to track them since, some have made it, some haven't. Like, the difficulty, I guess, for a lot of young Italian players, same as anywhere, is just trying to make a breakthrough. He's gone to Sassuolo since and has made a massive success. I presume he's not going to end up staying there for too long.
Well, Juventus are definitely among the clubs interested this summer. I think his Sassuolo were already fielding calls about Locatelli. He has had a huge step forward this season at Sassuolo, as you say. He wasn't someone who was off the radar of the big clubs beforehand. I mean, again, he made his debut at 18 for Milan, and within about a month of that debut had scored a brilliant goal against Juventus. So people have known about him for a while. But like lots of footballers, you don't just go from this first step into the professionals to everything that you're going to become, and I think he's taken a big step forward this season. Yes, clubs were already knocking on Sassuolo's door and making inquiries, but I think, unfortunately for all those clubs who are hoping to buy him, those 2 goals against Switzerland have already probably added a good little chunk onto his value. So we'll see where that ends up, because if he continues on in this vein, and this is fascinating, by the way, because I said this many times before Italy's opening game against Turkey. Italy were not worried when Verratti got injured and you had to bring in Locatelli, because they'd already used Locatelli a lot recently. He played in World Cup qualifiers in the spring. He's played well. But still, Verratti was definitely viewed as the starter. Now, I don't even know how certain it is that Verratti will take that job back if Locatelli is playing this well.
Right. What sort of personality then is Verratti, if we're talking about harmony of squad, if he's coming in and, is the main man in midfield before tournament, picks up an injury and can't get back in? Is he the type of personality you'll take that in his stride and fight for his spot, or is that potential issue for Mancini?
I've never seen him in a situation like this. Verratti certainly has a reputation as a hothead, but I think he's someone who, first of all, I think the whole team is very united, and I think that sort of crack, I wouldn't necessarily expect to see something come out too quickly, because I think they do genuinely, as I said before, get on very well together. And Mancini has said repeatedly in his press conferences, we don't have starters here, we don't have titolari, we have a team and everyone is involved in it. It's just a shame we can only put 11 on the pitch. So certainly he will hope that culture is embedded enough for it not to become an issue. I think there will be time for Verratti on the pitch either way, but honestly, I can't say for certain how he'll react, because we haven't been in this position with him before. And one thing is true about Verratti, which is he has been injured, unfortunately, with particularly bad timing a lot when his big opportunities for Italy were coming up. So I can see that being a frustration for him, but whether or not he'll make a fuss about it, I could only guess at that, really.
Ciro Immobile has scored in both games so far. He's had a lot of opportunities within those games as well. He came into the tournament with question marks around him. Those goals, do they assure him of his spot now? Do you think he can relax and say, yes, I am the main man for the rest of this tournament?
Oh, he's definitely the number 9 for Mancini now. I think that place is something he's won relatively recently. In the last year, I think there's been a sort of slow shift from Mancini towards him being ahead of Belotti in a pecking order. But again, given Mancini's rhetoric, given the things he's said so repeatedly about the fact we don't have starters in this squad, I would be quite surprised if we don't see at least some rotation going into this Wales game, given that Italy are through the group anyway. I would be surprised if we don't see some. And I think Belotti is certainly quite high on the list of players who I could imagine being given a start in that Wales game, because Mancini does like him. He does have quite a lot of confidence in him as well. And I think that would make some sense to me for Immobile to get that rest in that game and Belotti to get the start maybe against Wales. But that's speculating still. I don't have that. Don't have that from the Italy camp just yet. And I would still say I would expect Immobile to be starting again either way come the last 16.
It'll be interesting to see now, because as I say, you have Italy, Belgium, Netherlands, 2 wins from 2 and assured of a place. We saw the Republic of Ireland benefited from it back in 2016 when Italy rested a lot of players for the final group game and Ireland managed to progress, and it didn't do Italy any harm in the last 16 when they went on to beat Spain. They'll have some decisions to make, these managers, about do you want to keep the momentum and the buzz going, or actually is the best thing at the end of the longest possible season to give those players on the fringe of the team a chance and give the other players a bit of a rest.
Yeah, see, I don't think Mancini will view it in those terms. I think he'll think he can keep the momentum going while rotating. I think he really, it's not just lip service. I think he really thinks he has a squad of players who, not everyone is interchangeable, but a lot of whom can be swapped in and out without taking a huge dent out of the quality and the cohesiveness of his team. So I don't think he's necessarily going to change 11 players. I don't expect something that drastic, but again, it would be really against the his own rhetoric, really, not to give some of these other players their chance in the game against Wales.
What's your sense then, Nicky, of how far this Italian side can go? Because it is all getting set up, depending, maybe they do rest players, maybe they finish second in the group, but right now we're looking at an Italy-Belgium quarter-final potentially, and what a tantalising prospect that is and what we've seen from both of them so far. From what you've seen from Italy over this tournament and over the last couple of years, do you think they're ready to beat a team of the quality of Belgium?
I almost don't want to jinx anything. I think they're playing as well as anyone at this tournament. And I find this sort of idea of, they haven't beaten anyone who's worth beating a bit overblown. I definitely have heard some people talking about after the Czech Republic beat Scotland, the Czech Republic are a good team. Well, Italy beat Czech Republic 4-0 just before the tournament. So if they're a good enough team to call them a good team when England play them or Scotland play them, and we're talking about the British media here, I'm sorry. So, it's not on you guys, but I think that's something I've heard over here. And then why shouldn't they be counted as a serious team when Italy played them and beat them 4-0? I think there is clearly a gap between that and Belgium and France and that small group of teams that are really contenders to win this tournament. But I think Italy are among that group now. I think that game against Belgium would be a great game. Don't necessarily feel confident that Italy would win it, but I think they would give a really good account of themselves, and I think they would have a chance of winning it, definitely.